On the 5th of February 1777, George Washington made one of the most dangerous decisions of the American Revolution. He ordered thousands of his own soldiers to be deliberately infected with smallpox. Doctors would take material from the sore of an infected patient, cut the skin of a healthy soldier, and place the infection directly into the wound. The procedure might protect the army. It might also leave large parts of it sick, contagious, and unable to fight for weeks, while British forces remained close enough to attack. If the British discovered what Washington was doing, they could strike while the Continental Army was filled with patients instead of soldiers. Washington gave the order anyway, because by then, he understood something many officers still refused to accept. Smallpox was fighting its own campaign, and it was winning. Washington knew the disease personally. In 1751, when he was 19, he traveled to Barbados with his older half-brother Lawrence and contracted smallpox. He survived, and the illness left him immune for life. 24 years later, that immunity separated him from thousands of vulnerable soldiers under his command. Many Americans came from farms and isolated rural communities where smallpox rarely circulated. They had never been exposed. British soldiers from crowded European communities were far more likely to be immune. The two armies carried similar muskets and could stand on the same battlefield, but disease did not threaten them equally. Washington first confronted that danger during the siege of Boston, where smallpox was spreading among civilians inside the British-held city. When the British evacuated in March 1776, Washington did not send his entire army inside. He first selected roughly 1,000 men who had already survived smallpox. Their old scars showed they were immune. Washington had captured Boston without a final battle, yet he still treated the empty city as dangerous territory. The warning became a disaster in Canada. American troops invaded Quebec, but smallpox entered their crowded camps and began destroying units faster than British fire. Terrified soldiers secretly inoculated themselves without proper supervision, then continued moving among healthy men. Instead of controlling smallpox, they helped spread it. Commanders banned inoculation because every new patient became contagious, but fear was stronger than military orders, and some soldiers continued the procedure in secret. By the end of 1775, enlistments were expiring, sickness was spreading, and American commanders believed they had to attack before their army disappeared. Only about 800 men were fit for the assault. The attack failed. Richard Montgomery was killed, Benedict Arnold was wounded, and hundreds were captured. Smallpox continued after the battle. Major General John Thomas refused inoculation, contracted the disease, and died. The remaining American forces eventually abandoned Canada. John Adams later called smallpox more terrifying than all the military forces opposing America combined. Washington had watched a promising campaign collapse without a decisive British victory, yet Washington still hesitated to order mass inoculation. That hesitation was not ignorance. Variolation first gave a soldier a controlled case of smallpox. The controlled infection was usually less deadly than natural smallpox, but it was not safe. Some patients died, and every inoculated soldier could infect others. Most importantly, recovering soldiers could not march or fight. Washington was not treating individuals, he was calculating the survival of an entire army. During Boston's 1721 epidemic, physician Zabdiel Boylston estimated that natural smallpox killed about 14%, while inoculation killed roughly 2%. The odds were far better, but if thousands were inoculated at once, thousands could become unfit for duty at once and leave the army defenseless. That was why Washington had previously prohibited unauthorized inoculation. One frightened regiment could infect another and paralyze the army at the worst moment. Then the military situation changed. Washington survived the disasters around New York, crossed the Delaware, and won at Trenton and Princeton. Those victories did not solve the manpower crisis. The army of early 1777 was being rebuilt with recruits from across the states, many of whom had never encountered smallpox. Washington faced two choices: wait for smallpox to strike naturally without warning, or choose the time, place, and speed of the infection himself. On February 5th, Washington wrote to Dr. William Shippen. Junior smallpox was spreading, he explained, and precautions might no longer stop it. The troops would be inoculated. Washington admitted the decision would create inconvenience and military disadvantages. But natural smallpox frightened him more than the enemy's sword. This was not merely a medical order. It became a secret military operation conducted within striking distance of the British Army. Doctors divided soldiers into groups and inoculated them at intervals, often about 5 days apart, so the entire army would not become sick at once. Churches, private houses, barns, and military hospitals became isolation centers. New recruits were supposed to be inoculated before entering the main army. Officers guarded patients, separated recovering soldiers from healthy units, and tried to protect nearby civilians from the contagious men. The British could not learn the operation's true scale. If General William Howe understood how much of the army was weakened, he could attack from New York. Washington was deliberately creating the vulnerability his enemy wanted. The difference was that he hoped to control when the weakness began and when it ended. Not everyone obeyed. Some generals and state leaders feared the procedure, while others worried inoculation would delay troops they were already struggling to raise. The resistance created exactly the problem Washington feared: late recruits, sickness appearing at the wrong time, and commanders unable to predict how many men could fight. Washington kept pressing. He ordered recruits inoculated quickly, demanded supervision and quarantine, and warned that healthy-looking reinforcements could suddenly become useless for an entire campaign. His surviving orders show soldiers being sent to military hospitals under officers' supervision while they underwent inoculation. The program continued through 1777 and into the Valley Forge period. It was slow, dangerous, and difficult to organize, but it worked. By late 1777, organized inoculation had become established across much of the Continental Army, sharply reducing the danger of one massive, uncontrolled outbreak. Smallpox did not disappear, but new recruits could enter service without the same fear that had emptied American units during the Canadian campaign. Washington's army still suffered from hunger, cold, poor supplies, and battlefield defeat. But one of the greatest invisible advantages held by the British had been reduced. There was no surrender ceremony for this victory, no captured flags, and no famous charge. Most of the campaign happened inside hospitals and isolation houses. Yet, the decision changed what the Continental Army could survive. Recovered soldiers returned to service stronger against an enemy no formation could stop. Washington is remembered for crossing the Delaware, enduring Valley Forge, and trapping Cornwallis at Yorktown. But first, he had to defeat an enemy no musket could shoot. So Washington made a choice that sounded almost insane. To prevent smallpox from infecting his army, George Washington infected the army first.